Yeah, and welcome. Well, welcome everybody, and I'd like to call the city council for, gosh, we're at February 28th, 12th, 13th, thank you. 2024 to order, and with that, we will move to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Please be seated. And with that, do I hear a motion for adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you very much, council. And with that, we're moving on to public comments. As is my requirement, I have to move on to reading our requirements. The council will not be accepting online public comments. This portion of the agenda is set aside for the public to address the council on agenda items that or any other topic the council may have purview or control over. However, the mayor or the council may not respond to comments from the public. If the comments are of a nature the council does not have influence over the council, then the mayor may or the presiding officer may request the speaker to suspend their comments. The council may direct staff to follow up on items brought up by the public. Comments are limited to a 3-minute time limit. Chief, you have the clipboard. Thank you, sir. Okay. Start with Mr. Schneibel, Daryl, SR 522, 35 miles an hour. Welcome.
Thank you.
I didn't know if it was shirt tails out or shirt tails down. And I brought the red folder. So I can just say, I propose that all of SR 522 be 35 miles an hour. Right now, there are a couple of signs on there that say 35 miles an hour, and it's confusing. I'm not sure what's going on. So in putting the signs of 35 miles per hour, I don't want to restrict it to the traffic engineering to where they're put. I would like to include a couple of motorists that we can commandeer, pedestrians, and people from CORE. Now, I can stop now if I feel that I've been heard at 35 miles per hour.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schneibel. I'm sorry, is it Julie Turnell? Yeah, Julie, welcome.
Thank you.
Please.
Before I begin, may I please have a show of hands who are here for the Sound Transit information? Okay. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor French and council members. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to say a few words this evening. My name is Julie Turnell, and I am a Lake Forest Park resident of 42 years. I'm concerned that Sound Transit has not considered the impacts of construction of the bus rapid transit project coupled with other projects in the area. Now that Sound Transit has said that construction will take as long as 3 years, I fear that a coming traffic Armageddon will have a serious impact on safety and the security in our community. The Sound Transit project will reduce Bothell Way to 1 lane at different times, erect detours, and stage a large number of trucks and construction equipment. This will cause delays and cut through traffic in our area, but the real impact will result from the following 6 other construction projects scheduled for the same time. Number one, the Revive I-5 project has been postponed and now squarely in the Sound Transit Stride 3 timeline. Pavement repair, seismic upgrades, and expansion joint replacements will require reducing I-5 to 2 lanes between State Route 520, also known as Bothell Way, and North Gate in both directions. Speed limits will also drop to 50 miles per hour on I-5, and periodic month-long ramp closures are planned. Number two, the City of Shoreline roundabouts at 145th and I-5 construction and utility work has also been delayed. This closure impacts access to I-5 and the South Shoreline Light Rail Station. Number three, the I-5 McAleer Creek Fish Passage construction at I-5 and State Route 104 will require lane reductions and potential I-5 closures. Number four, the WashDOT Lion Creek Culvert replacement at 35th Avenue Northeast and Ballinger Way will require a 5-week closure at Ballinger Way. And number five, the City of Lake Forest Park roundabout at 40th Place Northeast and Ballinger Way will also disrupt traffic. And finally, number six, the City of Kenmore WashDOT Swamp Creek Tributary Culvert Replacement Project at 61st and Bothell Way will cause delays on Bothell Way near Kenmore. To conclude, the bus rapid transit project in our area by itself will be hugely disruptive. But coupled with these other concurrent projects, it is a traffic perfect storm. Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
And now
Mrs.
I think we
Turner.
have John Drew.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, John Drew is next. Please, Mr. Drew.
Thank you. Apologies for piling on here, but the traffic perfect storm, which will result from the cumulative effects of the Sound Transit BRT construction coupled with the 6 other projects, will impact all the main traffic arteries in our area. I-5, State Route 522, State Route 523, and State Route 104. Though these include the major arterials in and out of Lake Forest Park, congestion will affect other neighboring cities as people try to navigate across the region. Even in the absence of detours, frustrated drivers will cut through to reach their destinations through our often narrow residential streets. Google Maps and modern traffic-aware in-car navigation systems don't care about the safety of our neighborhood children when plotting alternative routes for drivers, only how fast it gets them from point A to point B. And don't forget that the 372 and the 522 bus riders will not escape this perfect storm. 522 riders still must connect to the light rail at the Roosevelt Light Rail Station, not the much closer 148 station. So both buses will have to navigate for much of their routes through the congestion. It's to the city's credit that speed limits have been lowered, but in the absence of speed cameras, do we really think drivers are going to pay attention under these circumstances when they're late getting to point B? The safety risk is a major concern, and that safety risk is magnified if emergency vehicles are delayed because of the traffic congestion. Higher traffic volumes will lead to elevated pollution levels from idling cars, freight trucks, buses, and an estimated 5,000 industrial dump trucks needed to haul approximately 95,000 tons of construction debris generated in the Lake Forest Park section of Stride 3. The pollution threat is amplified in Lake Forest Park, where more residential properties are located on the highway. Noise pollution will also be pervasive. The increased traffic and vibrations between 153rd Northeast and 155th Northeast on the bridge crossing Blachetta Creek, combined with the concurrent bus lane construction, could destabilize the slope and heighten the risk of soil liquefaction. The fact that the bridge is bowing out towards the ravine provides evidence of this instability. Finally, I'm not against the BRT project. In fact, I'm generally supportive of bus rapid transit. Here's my Orca card. And yes, I voted for Stride 3 in 2016. I also want to say how much I appreciate the city's efforts to push back against the worst elements of the project and for the mitigations you've been able to achieve in the face of the David versus Goliath reality. I'm sure many in the room share these sentiments. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your comments. Jeff Sneddon, Mr. Sneddon, please.
I gotta get my Regal Cinema card out here. Anyway, first of all, Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for having stood with us for so many years now, in our fight with Sound Transit. Sound Transit claims Stride 3 will save bus riders 2.3 minutes transiting Lake Forest Park during the weekday afternoon peak hour commute. But Sound Transit miscalculated. They included the time beginning at 145th and 30th Avenue through the stoplight at Bothell Way in that calculation. The real savings, less than a minute. The cost of a bat lane in Lake Forest Park, half of all Stride 3's capital expenditures for property acquisition and construction. Our data scientists' independent analysis using a raw Google traffic data shows without building anything between 153rd and 165th on Bothell Way, coupled with stoplight signalization, suggests the time saved would be around 2.5 minutes. So not a whole lot of difference from the original calculation. 6 simultaneous transportation projects on top of Stride 3 will make LFP and Bothell Way ground zero for traffic congestion. Revive 5 alone, and this was in the paper today, 87,000 cars a day will be in search of alternative routes. The Downtown Seattle Association, City of Seattle, and King County Metro are asking WashDOT for $40 million to ease congestion during Revive I-5. Even Sound Transit CEO Sparman weighed in, voicing concerns about how this was going to work, asking the state to wait until Line 2 across I-90 opens in the winter. Then light rail would be able to handle 7,200 riders an hour. That's barely going to put a dent in 87,000 cars. In August, Sound Transit released 5 new Stride 3 environmental analyses, concluding they do not substantially change the analysis of likely project impacts. That's when we hired legal counsel. They've concluded Sound Transit has a legal obligation to assess the cumulative effects of all these projects, including Stride 3, on environmental impacts and public safety, particularly here in LFP. Our law firm's letter goes to Sound Transit next week. On Saturday, February 22nd, we're holding a press briefing to make this issue public. Please join us. We don't want a legal fight. We want real solutions. We propose 3 mitigated solutions. Don't build a bat lane in Lake Forest Park. Probably not realistic, but better than gridlock. Delay Stride 3 and LFP until all these other 6 projects are finished. This just kicks the can down the road, extending our pain for years. The best solution, don't build anything between 153rd and 165th. It saves probably around $200 million while reducing the time to build. It's a win-win for transit riders, taxpayers, LFP residents, and Sound Transit. It's the right thing to do. Tonight, we ask your support. Endorse our legal challenge and our mitigation solution. Stand with us. Come to our press briefing. Make this crisis known, especially among our neighboring cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate your comments. Moving on to Jack Tonkin. Jack. Sorry, my voice is going. I've been speaking too much today. I apologize. No, I'm good. Thank you, Lori. I appreciate that. Welcome, Jack. Visual aids.
This is the precursor to the big slide.
Can you all see that? And unfortunately, our friends online probably can't see. Matt, it's going to be tough.
If he speaks.
If you turn it around towards the camera, that way you probably could. Thank you, Chief. Yeah, so everybody can see it. There we go. I think that might work.
what you're looking at, I hope,
We can see it.
is what's going to happen unless Sound Transit starts to honor their obligations to do some boring and some real serious testing along 155th to 152nd. And so far, whereas they had a boring plan in the first design, it's been gone ever since. And they had 5 borings showing there in that critical area, but they've never done them. They went across the street and they did some borings there, which is a good idea because there's a slope over there too. But what we're talking about is not a slope. If any of you have gone down and walked along that corridor and walked over the bridge between 152nd and 155th, that's a cavern. That's a huge 60-foot drop. You'd die if you fell off that bridge. So it's not just a slope. You've got an ordinance now in your program that treats slopes and hazardous areas. And it requires a setback, a buffer of 50 feet, or in some cases, 25 feet. And there's an application that you're looking at right now that is critical to that. But I think with all the geotech stuff that's gone on and all the work that these people have done over years of effort, they have really got into deep in the grass to find out what the deal was. And they should be commended. They have carried our water for 2 years on this whole project. So what I'm asking for, what I'm hoping that you would do, is that we've had letters from our mayor and we've had meetings. CORE has made great efforts. You individually have also talked to some of CORE, to the Sound Transit, but we're still where we were. So what I'm asking is that now it's your turn. We need the council. We need your help. We need you to come together and make a real strong statement to ST that it's not just the other elements that they're causing here. We have a lot of hardships coming our way because of it. But I think one of the major things is we don't need this. If this happens, we're talking about probably loss of homes all the way down to the lake, damage. We're talking about injuries. We could even be talking about somebody gets killed. Now, I think that's a hell of a lot more important than some of the other points that have been brought out. And I think it's an emotional one. There's no laws on it. But I don't know how you can go forward and leave this whole project without coming out and coming together as you can and will do a good job and letting Sound Transit know there's another issue here. They haven't done anything about it. And so if that slide happens, who's liable? Maybe you can talk to them about a bond for a couple of $100 million if that thing goes, or liability insurance, some of those things. I don't know. I just know that if this ever happens, everybody here is going to regret it and be very, very sorry about it. There's a gentleman here who I met with the other day, and he is the fire marshal for Shoreline and Kenmore, and Lake Forest Park, and Woodway, and he's here, and he wants to talk a little bit. He looked at these pictures. He knows the area. They've tried to take some, and have taken some trucks down that hill, which is not an easy task. And so his name is Ryan Burgess, and I'm asking he follow me. And so I'm going to give you some of the information about Ryan, so you have that. But then it's his chance to say a few things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. Ryan's next on the list. So Ryan, would you like to join us at the podium?
Yes.
Appreciate your comments, Jack. Thank you very much. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you guys very much, Mayor French and council members. Thank you for taking the time to meet with all these folks tonight and having myself here. So just a little bit of history for those of you who don't know me. As Mr. Tolkien advised, I'm Ryan Burgess. I'm the fire marshal for the Shoreline Fire Department. And we've been working with the city of Lake Forest Park and Kenmore through an ILA. And as of tonight, I don't know if the official news has gone out yet, but it sounds like the RFA vote that went out is a go. So excited to continue the service that we've been providing to Lake Forest Park and the city of Kenmore, and excited for the continued partnership. So Mr. Tolkien came into our office a couple days ago to discuss some of these issues that you guys are bringing up here tonight. And I didn't have a whole lot of background on some of the things that they're discussing, other than I know about the Sound Transit project that's going through 522 here, and had also been part of some of the conversations on the earlier designs, most of which had to do with driveways and approaches and things like that. But I was not aware of some of these other issues as it relates to Mr. Tolkien bringing up the landslide issues. Now, obviously, as your emergency service provider, these are issues that concern the fire department. Definitely on the larger side of things, of all the projects that are happening, we're always very involved with the construction projects throughout Lake Forest Park and Kenmore and into Shoreline. As a lot of you guys know, these impact traffic. So our office is very involved in any of the traffic issues that come up so that we can advise our crews as necessary, so that we don't have any delays in response times. But of course, I'm very interested as these projects, continue down the road, that if there's any issues that come up, I want, of course, the citizens of Lake Forest Park as well as Kenmore and throughout Shoreline to know that we are always involved with any planning that goes on, and as far as how those issues may affect the citizens as it relates to traffic and or potential issues down the road. So, if I'm here, basically, I'm not here to say I'm here for or opposed to anything specifically, but I just wanted to let you guys know that we're here. We understand your concerns, and my job as the fire marshal, as well as the folks that support me in my office, is to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to work with folks in the planning department and others that work with Sound Transit to ensure that what's going on and what needs to be done is the right thing. I'm not a geotechnical expert. I have no schooling in that field whatsoever. But of course, we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to prevent any issues down the road. That's what our sole focus is in the fire marshal's office, is prevention, not only of fires, but of injuries and loss of life. So thank you guys very much for taking the time to listen to me. And if you guys ever have any questions, the citizens here, feel free to reach out to our office anytime. I'm more than happy to answer questions for you all and spend time working with the planning department here at Lake Forest Park. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Appreciate that. Yeah, everyone is focused on safety of the community, and we really appreciate that. Let's see, Mr. Bracht, Bob, would you like to join us? Talk about power outages. Unfortunately, we had one today. So here we are. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Mayor French, the council, for allowing me a few minutes to talk about a subject. I'll be a little wrench in the gears of the Sound Transit. I am a resident of Lake Forest Park. Been in the same house for 35 years. I claim these two wonderful folks, Scott and Julie, as my neighbors for that same time. My family that I married into moved to Lake Forest Park in 1925. My father-in-law has seen many things, develop businesses here. We have businesses that are apartments and commercial buildings in Kenmore and Lake Forest Park. But I'm here to talk about power. I'm talk about tree trimming. I know and understand the emotional attachment to trees in this community, and I get it. But I don't get the egregious mismanagement of trees as it relates to power lines. I could have a slideshow here. I could probably do this again. I sent a note in June of this last year about a power outage in the middle of summer or start of summer for our summer. I don't know if anybody's ever aggregated the number of hours that are lost on power to the, we have 8,000 to 10,000 residents in LFP. At the downtime of it, that marginalizes some people, businesses, et cetera. Lake Forest Park Town Center. I mean, most recently, what did we have? I was without power 4 to 5 days. Just recently. Today, 3 hours, 4 hours without power. A tree branch down somewhere here close. I have called and would love to know what the band is of the grid. I'm not sure we can get that, but the work here that we're all asking the council and the mayor to do with Sound Transit is the same thing we need to start to do with Seattle City Light. I'd look for a budget and appropriation of dollars that this city and community starts to appropriate, trimming back, not just canopy, but trimming back wasteful trees that have been allowed to grow in and around power. It's just, and it's a difficult word, but it's a tough word, but it's egregious. It really is. We look at wondering why fires happen in LA and what they do because maybe brush could be managed. Same thing with forest fires, how we manage that and whatnot. Outside forces contribute to all these things, but allowing things to hang over power that is suspended without moving power underground. And we know what Kenmore did. Kenmore spent the expense of moving power underground, right, on 522. How much that helps. I've now listened to 2, so I understand there's a special tree board in the minutes that I've watched for the last couple months and their minutes. And in those conversations, there's not one discussion that I've seen, maybe I've missed it, about appropriating dollars or a budget to trim trees back from power. Unlike my neighbors, some have solar, some pay that expense, but if we're talking about saving greenhouse gases, I then turn into my regular generator with a fossil fuel, and I turn that generator on to produce power for it. I also do it to help some of my neighbors. My neighbors have helped me in the past. So whatever we're trying to mitigate with what we're doing with these things and saving greenhouse gases, I'm going to put some back in to help fund my power and try to keep my house warm. All I'm doing and looking for, and I hope others are, is sure, save the canopy. That's okay, but try to look out for the residents and save power. Cut back on these egregiously overgrown trees that are in there, and let's just start to have a budget that starts to work with Seattle City Light and get whoever we can to do that. And I really would appreciate a look and a plan to all that. And thank you for your time and appreciate it tonight. Thank you.
Bob. We appreciate your time. Appreciate the comments very much. Let's see. Make sure I've got John Nimlos. Did you want to speak? No. Don Feeney, you're registered. Did you want to speak? Welcome, Don.
Good evening. I am a 48-year resident of Lake Forest Park. And probably 15, 16 years of that, I've been pretty active in the affairs of this city. During that whole time, I've never seen such a strong group of citizens work on a project for the betterment of Lake Forest Park than the core organization. So my hat's off to them. What are a city's responsibility to its citizens when an outside agency is applying for permits to do a design bid project within the city limits? A design bid build project, the responsibility for life safety issues of the project are the responsibility of the owner, Sound Transit, and its design professionals. The contractor is responsible for construction safety during the execution of the work and for life safety issues related to the design, such as building code compliance, egress routes, structural integrity, fire safety, and other critical aspects that must be resolved during the design phase. The owner, Sound Transit, is responsible for ensuring that the design of the project complies with all relevant life safety codes and regulations. The design professional's responsibility is to ensure that the design meets all safety issues, such as fire protection, accessibility, land movement, etc. The contractor's responsibility is to build the project to the requirements of the design. Life safety issues related to the project design is not the contractor's responsibility to resolve. So, how does Lake Forest Park hold the project owner, Sound Transit, responsible for and to cure any future design project failures? By ensuring the permit process is thorough and all permit requirements are met. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Don. Appreciate your comments. Pardon me, folks, losing my voice. Albert Lurhus, would you like to speak? You're welcome to. Not signed up here. Margaret Lurhus, like to speak? Okay, it's okay. You're not signed up to speak, but sometimes people don't check the box. And Liz Krasmitsky. Liz, would you like to speak? Okay. Thank you, Liz. Well, and this, seeing you all here tonight embodies what the spirit of Lake Forest Park is: engaged community. We had a massive response to our recent survey, and we thank you all for that, and keep coming back and talking to us. We really enjoy the feedback. And with that, if there's nobody else in the public that would like to, in the council chambers that would like to speak, okay, close public comment. Do gently. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And with that, we're moving on to, where are we here? The papers. Proclamations. You want to take a minute? If you all want to stay for proclamations, you're fine. If not, we can take how about we take a 5-minute recess? Council? We're good. Okay. I am seriously. So, thank you, Matt. We're back in session now. And with that, we're moving on to proclamations. First one is recognizing February 2025 as Black History Month. Councilmember Goldman.
Yep, thank you. Whereas each year Black History Month is observed in February, and whereas the origins of Black History Month date back to 1915 when Dr. Carter G. Woodson founded the organization known today as the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And whereas observing Black History Month provides opportunities to gain a deeper understanding of African American history and acknowledge the centuries of struggles for equality and freedom. And whereas Black History Month also celebrates the achievements and contributions that African Americans have made in shaping our country, society, and communities. And whereas every year, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History sets a theme for Black History Month, and the theme for 2025 is African Americans and Labor. And whereas this year's Black History Month theme is a call to everyone to study the various and profound ways that work and working of all kinds, free and unfree, skilled and unskilled, vocational and voluntary, intersect with the collective experiences of Black people. And whereas to participate in observing Black History Month, those interested can visit www.asalh.org to learn more about the origins of the month, this year's theme in African American history. Now, therefore, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Lake Forest Park do hereby proclaim February 2025 as Black History Month in the City of Lake Forest Park and urge all citizens to join in the special observance signed this 13th day of February 2025.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. Very important for us to all recognize these proclamations. We're moving on to proclamation.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. I noticed that Google has taken Black History Month off its official calendars. And I just want to speak up and say how terrible and embarrassing for them. And I hope other organizations don't do the same. I have not checked other calendars, but to me, that's just a shocking turn of events. So I just wanted to express my concern and just dismay that we would have come to that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That
Thank you.
absolutely, and appreciate you bringing that to everyone's attention. That is deeply alarming. It's a conversation for another time, but we need to move on to proclamation recognizing Day of Remembrance 2025, which is very important as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is a little bit of a long one. Day of Remembrance. Whereas on February 19th, 1942, President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued Executive Order 9066, which authorized the United States military to forcibly remove and incarcerate more than 120 persons of Japanese ancestry from the West Coast, including 12,000 Japanese American residents of Washington State. And whereas the first civilian evacuation order gave Japanese Americans from Bainbridge Island less than 1 week to leave behind homes, personal belongings, farms, businesses, friends, and family, and report to hastily constructed detention centers like Camp Harmony on the grounds of Washington State Fair in Puyallup. And whereas this drastic course of action allegedly aimed to prevent acts of espionage and sabotage by Japanese Americans who were deemed untrustworthy and disloyal to the United States. And whereas on March 23rd, 1943, the War Department organized a segregated unit of Japanese Americans, many of whom reported for military duty from concentration camps surrounded by barbed wire in which they and their families were detained. And whereas more than 12,000 volunteers responded to questions about their loyalty and patriotism by amassing a battle record unparalleled in the United States military history, with a casualty rate of 314% and earning a collective 7 presidential unit citations, 21 medals of honor, 29 distinguished service crosses, 1 distinguished service medal, 588 silver stars, more than 4,000 bronze stars, 22 Legion of Merit medals, 145 soldiers medals, 9,486 Purple Hearts, 1 decoration from France and Italy, and in 2010, the Congressional Gold Medal. And whereas in 1982, the Congressional Commission on Wartime Relocation and Internment of Civilians found no military or security reason for the internment of persons of Japanese ancestry, but determined the cause of the incarceration is racial prejudice, war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership. And whereas through this travesty of justice, Japanese Americans suffered immense economic loss of property and assets, immeasurable physical and psychological harm, and were deprived of their constitutional liberties without due process of law. And whereas in 1979, Washington State Congressman Mike Lowry introduced H.R. 5977 to provide reparations and an apology to the Japanese American incarcerees, thus initiating a 10-year legislative quest that ended when President Ronald Reagan signed the Civil Liberties Act of 1988. And whereas through Washington State, the last remaining survivors of the European and Asian Pacific battlefields of World War II and of American incarceration camps lived their golden years in quiet contrast to their extraordinary acts of conscience and valor, while all of America continues to benefit from their heroic patriotism. And whereas there were no Japanese or Japanese American residents in the original Lake Forest Park development due to restrictive racial covenants, there were several families of Japanese descent within the current Lake Forest Park city limits who were relocated. Now, therefore, the mayor and city council of City of Lake Forest Park pause to acknowledge the anniversary of the signing of Executive Order 9066 to recognize and remember Japanese American veterans, incarcerees, and civil rights activists from the state of Washington, and to honor the lessons and blessings of liberty and justice for all, and to proclaim February 19th, 2025 as the Day of Remembrance in the city of Lake Forest Park, and we urge all citizens to join us in the special observance.
Thank you, Vice Chair Furtoni. I appreciate that very much. Chair's privilege for a second. I'm just going to say that I know this body and this city is never going to discriminate against anybody based on race, gender, religion, or ideological belief. And it makes us all sad here who sit on the dais to see what's happening right now. Day by day, things are getting eroded, and it is our obligation as citizens and people of this republic to push back. So I'll leave it there, and I don't want to be negative because we have a really fantastic thing here. Chief, you have the floor.
Okay, so good evening, council,
Reset.
mayor and community, the ones that I'll just went out. So tonight I have the honor of introducing our newest police officer, Officer Mike Rizk. Officer Riz was hired on August 5th of last year and graduated from the Basic Law Enforcement Academy a couple weeks ago. He begins his field training on Sunday for the next 3 months. Officer Riz was born and raised in Egypt. After receiving his Associate of Arts degree, he worked as a certified nurse assistant. He graduated from Central Washington University, where he completed flight school and received a bachelor's degree in law and justice. He served in the Washington State Army National Guard until 2015 as an aircraft electrician. He worked as a corrections deputy for the last 9 years with the Snohomish County Corrections. And while working for Snohomish County, he became a field training officer and a background investigator. He received the 2023 Life-Saving Medal Award for performing life-saving measures for a fentanyl overdose victim. He met his wife, Kristen, who's here tonight, while both attending Central. They were married 10 years ago and have a 7-year-old daughter, Sophia, right here tonight. And Officer Riz has a lot of hobbies and enjoys all outdoor activities. He enjoys taking his family fishing and crabbing in the Puget Sound, camping and going on motorcycle rides, and he's the only member of his family to work in law enforcement. Officer Riz said he has a great appreciation and respect for the profession and looks forward to a great career serving the Lake Forest Park community. So tonight we'll have a swearing in as our next police officer for Lake Forest Park and a badge pinning. Congratulations, and Judge, your turn.
I'm going to stand over here. I'll have you come here. It's my honor to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. I, Michael Rizk,
I, Michael Rizk,
have been duly appointed
as
as police officer of the city of Lake Forest Park.
police officer for the city of Lake Forest Park.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
perform the duties of the office
perform the duties of the office
as prescribed
as prescribed by law
and to the best of my ability,
and to the best of my ability,
and that I will support and maintain
and I will support and maintain
the ordinances of the city of Lake Forest
the ordinances of the city of Lake Forest Park
and the laws and the Constitution
and the laws and the Constitution
of the state of Washington,
of the state of Washington
United States of America.
and the United States of America. Thank you, ma'am.
Congratulations.
Now we're gonna have a little badge ceremony.
Oh,
Kristen. All right, want to get a picture? Real quick? There you go. And then if you want to come. up
let's
here-
get the full meal deal. Come guys, come down. Gonna be up on a pedestal.
All right.
Welcome to the team. Yeah, exactly. You bet.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Chief, and welcome, Officer Rizk. Moving on, do I hear a motion for adoption of the consent calendar?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any concerns or objections, comments, missives, anything? No. With that, it passes with unanimous consent. Thank you, everybody. We're moving on to ordinances and resolutions for action. Resolution 25/1997, adopting the capital improvement plan for 2025-2030. Thank you very much, Administrator Hill.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You'll remember at your last meeting, we presented the 6-year capital improvement plan to you. During that time, we identified through council, there were a few mismatches. The cover sheets did not match the backup as far as dollar amounts. So I'll just run through the corrections that have been made since the last time you saw this. There was also requests for additional information to be added. So one, the numbers have been double checked. Finance Director Vaughn double checked me as well, make sure I got my math right and carried numbers across. You'll still see on here that the red numbers are where we have funding issues, future projects that we're going to need to look at. You'll see across the top, there's a column added as transportation safety. That is your new general fund 002. And you'll see in some outer years, beginning in 2026, where some of those dollars are programmed. One of the other questions that came up last time was there was a missing number 10 in the list. That was actually just a hidden row. It was our infamous tennis court lights. That project was completed, so that row was just hidden. So
How appropriate.
I just deleted that row, renumbered everything for you. And so this should stand with all the corrections that you had requested and additional information that you'd asked for. The last thing I want to cover is that the backup sheets are numbered to match the number that are on the cover sheets. So easy reference for you. As we've stated before, the 25-26 CIP was adopted as part of the budget, but the 6-year plan was not, and we need that, one, to meet our requirements of law, and two, to include in our comp plan for Director Hoffman. So I stand for any questions.
Thank you very much, Administrator Hill. And thank you very much for standing in for the CIP master planners for a number of months. Colleagues, questions for Administrator Hill? You had a number of them previously. Some of them were scrivener's errors, some were a little more substantive, but I think it's gotten dialed in. Let me go to my friends online here. Councilmember Riddle, Councilmember Good, any thoughts? Questions?
Thank you for picking up all the comments and taking a look at it. It's a lot easier to track, and I appreciate the effort that was put into it. It looks good.
Thank you, Councilmember Riddle. Councilmember Good?
I also second that. Thank you for streamlining it and making it easier to read. It's very helpful.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions? Councilmember Goldman.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with the capital improvement plan itself. My question would be, in light of recent events, how confident are you in the dollar amounts that are listed here? For instance, tariffs on steel.
Good question. I don't know. It's a wait and see. I mean, we just found out that there's gonna be some additional tariffs on materials that may be included in, say, our roundabout project. And so it gives you a little bit of pause as that goes out to bid this year. So we do have good inflation numbers kicked in for that, but I'm not sure that that's, depending on the size of the tariffs and how much costs go up, that'll be enough in there to cover it if it does affect the project. So that's a roundabout way saying I don't honestly know, but we'll hope for the best.
Good question. Thank you. Ron, anyone else? Okay, Where are we?
I would
Yeah.
move
Yeah.
the adoption of Resolution 25-1997, adopting the capital improvement plan for 2025 to 2030.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution 25-1997. I'm sorry, Mr. Hill.
This is only your second touch, so you'll need to waive your three-touch rule.
Colleagues, are you amenable to waiving the three-touch rule?
According to the cover sheet, it is the third touch.
It says
It
third.
said third.
Next
Well,
question.
Okay, maybe we've talked about this one. Okay, I'm looking at the next one.
Yeah,
Guess
you're
we've
good.
talked
Yeah.
about this one enough. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's been a long year already, so you're fine, Phil. So we're actually, we don't have to waive the three-touch rule based on the, what's up here on the agenda. Any further discussion, folks? Yeah, I'm sorry, John, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the updates. I'm supportive of the capital improvement plan. I would just offer that when we get in the 30% design program and estimate for the SR 522 overpass, I still have concerns about proceeding with such a large capital improvement project for what I think has in total not the same value that we might achieve through other capital improvements.
Thank you, Councilmember. Appreciate your thoughts on that. Any other discussion, colleagues? Hearing none, all those in favor of 1997, please signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any nays? The ayes have it. It passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Council. Thank you very much, Administrator Hill. And we are moving on to, hang on just a second. Get my too many papers here going. One other item for discussion for council tonight. Resolution 25-2004, declaring certain assets as surplus for disposition through direct sale of public auction. This is our property disposition question. Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, as you remember, last time we discussed this, we have 5 vehicles that are ready for replacement per our schedule. P2, P12, and P14, these are all Ford Explorers within the police department. 2 and 12 are just regular police vehicles. P14 has been used as the K9 vehicle. It is not worthy of being a K9 vehicle in the future. As you'll remember, the foundation purchased for the city a
Yeah.
K9 vehicle. Excuse me. And to clear something up that I misstated last time I was here, and the chief immediately pointed it out to me, is that P14 is not technically being replaced by that vehicle from the foundation. We still, even with the foundation's purchase of that vehicle, that's a vehicle outside of our regular replacement program. So when we come back to you on March 20th, I think is the date at Budget and Finance, we'll discuss the chief's approach to how all the vehicles would be replaced within there. But basically, the 3 vehicles here will still need to be replaced by the city. We can't replace it with something that the foundation bought for a specific purpose. So we'll have that discussion at a later date. The first 2 vehicles are ready to go out the door. Now, as soon as we get the delivery of the replacement vehicle that the foundation purchased, once it's outfitted, then that will be driven by the K9 officer. But due to staffing, as you know, you've increased the number of officers due to the traffic camera, we will need an additional vehicle. And so there'll be some shuffling that we'll discuss in March. The 1996 Jeep Cherokee, as I mentioned to you last time, I reached out to Steve at NUD. I haven't heard back from him on his concerns of that. He says it's not roadworthy, shouldn't be out there, same as the international dump truck from 1997. So we're going to get a little more detail on that and make sure that the values that are shown here are appropriate values that we really think will get at auction. He already knew about the dump truck, so I feel confident there, but I have a little bit of concern on the values that they think we might get for the Cherokee. So we're waiting to hear back from Steve. I will report back to you if that number changes significantly downward. As I mentioned before, we have Resolution 612, which established the policy to dispose of surplus other than real estate, and due to the value of the items, it's beyond the mayor's signing authority to dispose of these, so it has to be brought before council. there's no minimum that we can set. So you get what you get for the vehicles, or reserve, if you want to call it that. And then there is a 10% commission as well for James G. Murphy. Any questions?
Colleagues, questions for Administrator Hill? This is always a difficult one, disposition of assets. Vice Chair Furtani.
Hi, thanks for the update on the report. I'm just wondering, since this is our second touch on this, is there any kind of what is the word? Immediacy or urgency? There's the word, thanks. Urgency on acting on this, or should we wait for the numbers you were mentioning to come back?
Yeah, I mean, I can wait to hear back from Steve. If you want to put it on your next meeting, we can get you those numbers. If there's no change, we could just throw it on consent. You can adopt it then. There's plenty of auction dates coming up in the future. We don't need to hit any specific one. Sooner we get rid of it, the sooner we get the vehicles off the insurance. You know, they're just sitting in the parking lot being liability.
Fair enough.
I would offer that the change in value, because it's likely to be over 3,000, but even if it's under 3,000, then it falls under the mayor's authority. That moving assets in a reasonable manner is appropriate. So I would be in favor of waiving the 3-touch rule. Did we have three on this?
This one's only had
This is
two.
So I would be in favor of waiving the 3-touch
Is that
rule.
what,
and
Mr.?
I'm in favor, and then I'll just finish that supportive of the ordinance. So I will make a motion to waive the 3-touch rule to.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to waive the 3-touch rule regarding resolution 24-2004. Any further discussion? Thank you, Mr. Goldman.
Yep, I'll just kind of state my reasons in favor of waiving the 3-touch rule. And that number one, this would be funds coming into the city. Number two, it doesn't seem like there's really many questions about the proposal itself, like the underlying proposal, nor have we heard anything from the public. And so I don't see this as any sort of controversial ordinance.
Thank you. Any other comments? Discussion on waiving the 3-touch rule. Thank you, Mr. Lebo. Appreciate that, because some of these things, if we can move them forward, it saves time in the future. Really appreciate that very much. All those in favor of waiving 3-touch rule on resolution 25-2004 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you, council. That passes unanimously. Mr. Lebo, would you like to make a
So
motion?
I will move that we adopt resolution 25-2004, declaring certain assets as surplus for disposition through direct sale or public auction.
Thank you, Mr. Lebo. It's been seconded by Councilmember Riddle. Any discussion, colleagues? Hearing none, all those in favor of passing resolution 25-2004 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you very much, colleagues. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Okay, we've moved past these things. Any other business, colleagues, friends? Vice Chair Furtani.
Just a quick reminder to council that we have our retreat on March 1st. And that I think we've more or less come up with an agenda, which is very similar to what we were talking about at the, was it the work session? Yeah, at the work session the other night. So if you have any concerns, please contact me.
Thank you, Vice Chair Furtani. Any other business? Excuse my French. Unintended. Nope. Okay. We're moving on to Councilmember reports. Colleagues, questions? Mr. Lebo.
I'd like to update the council. There was a planning commission meeting this past Tuesday. The conversation continues on the middle housing and the adoption of code language that we would be able to review in advance of our deadline of June 30th for adoption. Otherwise, we would have to adopt the state model code requirements. They are focused primarily on what I'll call a sort of a minimum requirement, which is that there are a couple of different alternatives within the minimum, which would be that you have 2 principals for every lot. And the principal residence could be 2 houses, 2 flats, a duplex. The other is that you may have a principal residence with 2 ADUs. So those two options represent the minimum that are required. And the planning commission will be looking at sort of model language in their March meeting that they can bring forward. To the extent that they would like to, this issue of affordability, they recognize is a desire upon the council and others within the city of Lake Forest Park. So if there are opportunities that you can have some sort of incentive or a bonus that allows additional density for affordable housing is something that they would like to pursue. But it's really going to come down to timing and what that might look like in terms of how they would address it. So they are focused very much on trying to adopt code language that we can look at that reflects the minimum as the, again, 2 principal or a principal plus 2 ADUs. Questions?
Yes, Councilmember Lebo, my recollection is that's regardless of lot size. Is that correct?
I am not absolutely
Okay,
sure, but I
well,
can,
we can deal with
Down
that
to a
later.
Very,
Yeah,
very small.
yeah,
number.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
yeah. Anyway,
Definitely.
sorry. I just have always thought that was curious from the state legislation. Yeah.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate it. Councilmember.
Question. So when we adopted our comprehensive plan, we made some changes and simplified the number of zones in the city. Is that something the Planning Commission has been looking at in terms of actually implementing that?
it didn't come up in conversation. The other thing that they will be addressing is revisions to subdivision code.
Yeah.
So for example, 0 lot lines, so that if you
Right.
could have two residents that were essentially on a 0 lot line is something that's going to be considered.
Thank you,
But in
Councilmember.
terms of the simplification of the zoning, it wasn't in this previous discussion and I don't recall.
Thank you both. Deputy Mayor Bodie.
Yes, on the issue of subdivision, I have talked to our city attorney some about that because of the requirement that if you have these separate living units, you must make them available for individual sale. And so it isn't like a traditional subdivision, but our city attorney has some resources available to us, and I'm sure they could be or have been shared with the planning commission, but it's a topic I've raised because as an attorney myself, I see a lot of complexity there. It's why we have condo laws and subdivision laws, and I see the potential for litigation over, who has what rights on an undivided lot with individual sales. But anyway, more to come on that later, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And on point, I think that the situation is very fluid at the legislative level, and many things we're still catching up as a community and the state relative to middle housing and the ADU HB was 1110 from 2 years ago, and the reconciliation from Department of Commerce, and there are new ones coming down the pike.
Yeah.
So I would urge the community and all of us elected officials to make sure we stay in the loop to try to understand as best we can, because it is a very, very complicated thing, and it's very important to our community and particularly to our environmental ethic and making sure that we can protect our natural environment. Colleagues, other council member reports or committee reports? Vice Chair Furchani.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to have a quick update on the Climate Action Committee meeting.
You bet.
We're working, and I did not get the name of our new staff liaison, and I do apologize for that.
Yancy.
That's it.
Yancy.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
So it was a really good introduction to him, and we really appreciate that. The one big piece of news is that we're having, we had a joint meeting with the Kenmore Climate Action Committee, and we're trying to plan several events that in common with them, so to leverage both of our city's resources. And then finally, we're also working with the Parks and Rec Board on, there's a public art project I didn't know about in Horizon View Park that's going to be unveiled sometime around April 27th. And that's Earth Day weekend as a coincidental thing. So we're having something like a climate hub mural painting along with basically that opening of that public art. So stay tuned for that weekend in April.
Thank you very much for Vice Chair Ferrantoni. Deputy Mayor Bodie.
Yes, I just wanted to alert folks that the much postponed sign ordinance is going to come forward to us according to our Community Development Director's update in the City Administrator's report. So we didn't get any comments from the Department of Commerce, and various environmental and other compliances are going on right now, and it will come back to us for discussion and adoption. Recall, it's not completely simple. We did have some policy questions about, say, a sign duration and political signs, and the fact that they can't be treated any differently from other signs. And so I'm sure it will be an interesting discussion, but I look forward to finally adopting the sign ordinance that was recommended to us over a year ago by the Planning Commission. So that will be a good one to check off the box on.
Thank you. And on point, we have tennis court lighting has now been retired. Material bin covers close to retiring. And if we retire the sign ordinance, you all are going to have to find a new joke to come up with, because some of those languish for 18 years. So, and thank you very much, Director Hoffman. Did you want to comment on the sign ordinance, or?
If I may, just an update, the SEPA comment period ends next week, Thursday. We've gotten one comment from the Duwamish tribe, and no specific issues in that comment. But with 1 week to go, any public comments on the environmental review are welcome.
Thank you, Director Hoffman. Any other comments on point? Larry, you look like you're.
I have other reports.
Oh, yes, please continue.
Yeah, so I attended the tree board meeting earlier this week. The tree board is going to be at our meeting on February 27th to report on their 2024 accomplishments and their 25 work plan. They're continuing, I think one of their big plans is to look at exceptional tree diameters. They really want to do a good job, make sure that they're providing a lot of detail and justification for what they're going to be recommending to us. I also attended Seashore, the Seashore meeting. We kind of had some breakouts about what the various cities are looking at. One that seemed to be a common thread is multimodal and trail connectivity. And so maybe working with Shoreline to connect the interurban and Burke-Gilman trails. At the same time, Woodinville is working to connect the Burke-Gilman to the Sammamish River Trail. So just trying to develop a more robust regional trail network.
Thank you, council member. Colleagues, other council member or committee reports. Thank you. Administrator Hill, would you like to go in advance of my short missive?
Sure.
What do you?
The final order.
Yeah.
I'm going to come up here because I'm going to make the.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought this was appropriate.
I thought so as well. Thank you. Appreciate it. Rebecca, I want to
Please join
introduce the one public member
Speak
that
of
we
the
have
new
left.
Team members.
Council
Yeah.
members who haven't met Rebecca yet. This was Rebecca Dickinson, our new Public Works Director. Tomorrow she will finish 3 weeks. She didn't leave after the snowstorm. She was instrumental. You read in the CA report about the contract with NUD, getting that done on the fly. We had, I think I put in there, I think it was the 6th into the 7th. That morning we had 2 crew members who could plow. We had 3 out. And so they were beat. Rebecca reached out and needed, what can we do? You know, we've got this option. Justin, our new superintendent, had brought this idea forward and we got it done in a matter of hours. So as with Justin, who came on and then we had a bomb cyclone, Rebecca came on and it snowed, but I just want to introduce her to you so you know who you're looking for those of you who haven't met her, and I'm very happy to have her on board. So
You all are.
have
Yeah,
at her.
Thank you.
yeah, Rebecca.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you. Pleasure to be here and meet everyone. My first meeting. Nice turnout here. And I'm very happy to be here. I'm happy to serve the community here and bring the skills that I have from, previous positions to this position. And hopefully the breadth of that will be a big help here. And, just love it. Love it here.
Yeah, we kind of dropped her in the deep end of the pool and she's hit the ground running. She's doing a great job and we really appreciate you being here, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Sincerely. So colleagues, when you get a chance, please say hi, stop by her office and welcome her. We've got a lot of things going on and we need to move forward. Yes.
I just want to say welcome, and Public Works is so important to the functioning of our city. And as you know, we're a multitasking kind of organization, being a small city. So really welcome you and really appreciate the diverse skills that you're bringing to this. So, and then my question is, do we know why we had yet another power outage? Do we know yet
I think it was-
why?
I'm not quite certain. It may have been tree related.
Yes.
It may have been, but I'm not certain at this point. It was under investigation a couple of hours ago, but I haven't.
Yeah,
checked.
I was just curious because it affected 3,700 households, which is a lot of our city. And
Yeah.
this,
Shoreline too.
yes,
Yeah.
and Shoreline too. And this
Yeah.
was not, you weren't here for our conversation with Seattle City Light, but basically there was a moment where they said that at 12:40 or something, it had said it had been reported at 12:33 and it was going to be resolved at 12:44 and it was 12:44. So obviously that didn't happen. So I think their data systems are still somewhat messed up.
They are.
City administrator. So anyway, thank you very much.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome.
Yeah, well, and actually, you're stealing a little of my thunder here on my
Oh,
report. The team, Rebecca and the chief and Phil and everybody, we were back and forth. I was at a meeting in downtown Seattle, back and forth through the whole process, trying to figure out what was going on. These guys were right on top of it, trying to figure out what was going on. And so, as always, we really appreciate what you guys do. And it's
I noticed that council members Good and Councilmember Goldman were not affected.
oh, yeah, I get special treatment.
Yeah, special treatment.
Technically, I'm on the Seattle grid.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough. All right.
The Seattle grid ends at 146th Street. Oh.
Well, welcome, Rebecca. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
our team. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just a couple of things quickly, and then we've got to get to an executive session. Again, big thanks to Rebecca's team and at Public Works, and through all of the things that have been going on, we've been down a bunch of staff members and she's jumped right into the fray here and lifted up the team. PD as well has done a magnificent job of coordinating things and seeing what's going on the ground. We had a really great meeting today with King County Parks, Phil and Rebecca and myself and the chief. Very refreshing conversation with the King County Parks group about the Burke Gilman Trail. They're going to be redeveloping all the intersections in Lake Forest Park, and they've been very receptive to our input about how to keep people safe on the trail. And it's a wonderful, I won't say change, but it's a very positive relationship, and I really appreciate them reaching out to engage with us. It was about 90 minutes of really positive conversations. Chief and Phil and I and Rebecca said, these are the concerns we have. They said, okay, let's find a solution. They went right to it. So really appreciate that about King County Parks. Speed limits, the question our friend here has raised about speed limits. We are still working with WashDOT on trying to get the speed limits reduced to 35 ubiquitously across the range. This is a long fight that I've been waging, my friend. So I got it down from 45 to 40 in 2013. We got it from with the help of the chief and Public Works and administration down to 35 for the first part. Not sure why they're resistant about this part. We'll get there. I promise you. I'm that is a hill I will die on, my friend. So we just got to keep up the pressure because the dangers are real here. There's no question. And let's see, planning. Sign ordinance. Mark covered that already. It's going to be great to get that behind us. And I really am serious about we need a new joke. So I'm going to leave that to you, please. The recent snow was pretty cool. I sent out a picture to you, some of you folks, of sledding at Horizon View Park. Oh my goodness, the number of kids at Horizon View Park was astounding. It was really, really amazing. And so big thanks to Public Works to allowing us to get up there, first of all, because that's a very big hill. It's the highest hill in the greater Seattle area. And we wouldn't have been able to get up there to do sledding with the little ones if it hadn't been for the work of the team here. So I invite you all, the next time it snows, and it snowed today, go up there and take a look at the little tiny hill there where the kids, are sledding. And I will send out I have a panoramic view of all the kids and all the adults out on the field, which is kind of a very fun thing. So I think that's it for me. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, we're going to adjourn to an executive session. And again, we're going to performance of a public employee per RCW 42.30.110 parens G. And thank you guys. We are not taking action when we come back, but we're out. What's our time frame? Emery? What do you think? 10 minutes? Perfunctory? Okay. 10 minutes and we'll be back with no action taken when we resume. Thank you very much, everybody. Voice is going. Almost. And welcome back, everybody. We're back from our executive session and I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? We're adjourned by unanimous consent. Thank you, everybody. Cheers.
Hi, Paula.
Bye, Paula.
Hi,
You came back.
it's raining here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, not too much rain though. Yeah.
Rain is fine.
Right.
Unless it dips 20 degrees.